Interested in starting a deer farm and don't have the capital to purchase animals? Well, head over to deerandwildlifestories.com and click the Startup tab to learn more. The white-tailed deer is America's favorite big game animal, and white-tailed deer farming is the fastest growing segment in the American agriculture industry. Our program's mission is to dive into the world of deer farming and discover why tens of thousands of Americans compete to create the biggest bucks in the world. And by the biggest bucks, we don't just mean the size of the antlers. The financial investment opportunities produced even on small parcels of rural land will blow you away. Join me as we discover how whitetail genetics, deer auctions, animal husbandry, and so much more drive the deer farming industry. My name is Keith Warren, and this is Deer and Wildlife Stories. Honestly, I don't know how many years I've been coming out to George's place. I mean, I remember the very first time I came, I was blown away. And I was blown away because the deer, I mean, taking a look at the deer are beautiful, but more importantly, I was blown away because the location, the location is, I guess, about 40 minutes at the most from downtown Houston, Texas. I mean, look at this place. It's absolutely beautiful. But the biggest thing that blew me away was a buck by the name of Gunslinger. Now, Gunslinger got my attention in a big way, but he got everybody else's attention in the deer industry. And the most important thing about Gunslinger is he threw big. When you take a look at the offspring that came out of Gunslinger, you know George had a hit. But the thing about it is, it's like George didn't want to be known as just a one-hit wonder, so to speak, as just having a buck by the name of Gunslinger and everybody in the country talking about him. George continued breeding and pushing his genetics more and more. And now he's got some bucks that, well, they'll smoke Gunslinger.
My name is George Tunal. A lot of people ask how I got into deer farming, and we do a lot of misting systems. I own Houston Mosquito Control, Mosquitex, and Deer Guardian. So we got into the deer industry helping them protect their deer from bugs. And one thing led to another. I went home and told my wife one day, I said, you know what, we're gonna get a couple deer. I said, we think we need a few deer. We still laugh about that, because 500 deer later, I still tell her every once in a while we go to an auction, I may buy a few deer. And she gets laughing, you did that once.
Look at the deer are beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Like that guy right there, look how wide he is. Who's that?
Just a deer out of Gunslinger.
Is he out of Gunslinger?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, folks, Gunslinger, when I came out here years ago, I fell in love with Gunslinger just because of the look. What was it, 4 years ago, I guess it was? I mean, how old was he?
Yeah, it would have been 4 years. He'd have been 4.
Gunslinger quickly became my favorite deer, and anybody that watches the show knows that. I mean, I see a lot of deer, but Gunslinger, I just love Gunslinger because I love the look. Now, Gunslinger's got a great pedigree, but he's got the look. And the whole deal about any deer, it's they become real valuable when all of a sudden they've got the pedigree, the look, and they got the performance. Okay, so show me some other deer in here out of Gunslinger.
Well, if you look at this one here, he's been on the internet quite a bit. That's Desperado. He's a yearling.
That's a yearling.
Well,
I thought he was at least 2. Look at him, George. That's Desperado.
That's Desperado. He's over 30 inches wide, probably 34, 35 realistic.
A direct Gunslinger son.
Direct Gunslinger son.
He's born out here.
Born out here.
Okay. My goodness, so he's probably one of the widest deer in this pen.
Yeah, he is. But the other ones that pretty much rival him are Gunslinger sons as well. So
okay, what about this guy right over here? Who's he out of, that wide deer right there?
That's a nice deer right there. That's a Gunslinger son as well.
Nice deer, get out of here. A nice deer. Yeah, there's some that are nice and there's some like real nice, but that's Gunslinger as well.
Yes, sir.
There are people that wound up buying Gunslinger semen all over the state of Texas, yes, but all over the country. I mean, because I've traveled from Michigan to Ohio to Florida, and people everywhere have bred Gunslinger, and the production out of Gunslinger is incredible. How about that one right there? Who's he out of?
Well, that one there, believe it or not, that's a Gunslinger one as well.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. When all of a sudden, when you got a deer that's got the look, the paper, and the production, how can you go wrong with Gunslinger? So, I mean, Gunslinger is you can see why. I mean, deer, I've got some deer at Gunslinger that are just, they're bombs, I call them. They just blew up. And they are awesome. And so those genetic traits just are carrying on.
And that's what I really appreciate about him. You know, we're trying to find something we can duplicate. And with Gunslinger, they're not all white.
Right.
I'm not going to lie to you. But one thing that they all seem to have is they all seem to have extremely long beams and extremely long G2s. Some of them will be 21 inches wide, some will be 35 inches wide. But the trait that he always carries is long beams that always touch the ground and those long G2s.
Now it's time for one of our frequently asked questions. All right, so it's getting close to breeding time, and I've got a troublemaker in a pen. It's a 3-year-old buck. You know, he's gonna hurt somebody if we don't get his antlers off. He's hard antlered now, and so I gave a tranquilizer. It went down, everything went well. I mean, I checked the deer out, he's big bodied. He's 31.5 inches inside. He's a big deer, real big deer for a 3-year-old. I'm proud of him. I wound up, I checked his feet and his testicles and the place where the dart hit him. I mean, he's good. I gave him some wormer and then waited a little while, and I reversed him. He got right up on his feet, shook it off a little bit, and walked off like nothing. I mean, like a champ. So anyway, he's not going to be able to hurt anybody. We're going to use him to cover some does. If the AI doesn't work, we use bucks to cover does, and he's certainly a good buck with a good pedigree to cover does. But that's what we do, and if we don't cut them off when they're in the velvet, we cut them off if they need to be cut off hard antlered. Stay tuned, because we'll be showing you some awesome stalker bucks. The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by New Dart, leading the industry in accuracy. So before we show you the stalker bucks at Tajada Whitetails, we had to get to work cutting off a buck's antlers, and his name is Lawman. And Lawman is a stud. When you take a look at him, I mean, he's wide, he's got everything a deer breeder's looking for. And the one thing George is always doing, he's breeding with the best pedigrees in the industry. All right, so let me tell you about the process of knocking down a deer and cutting the antlers off. It's very important that the team knows what they're doing, okay? It's important to point out to you that this does not hurt the deer either. What happens is that they go into the pen and they'll take what we call a projector. Some people call it a dart gun, but it's a projector, and you project a remote delivery device into the deer, okay? Once that remote delivery device is full of an anesthesia, it will knock the deer down in about 10-15 minutes. You want to make sure he's good and down, and then what they wind up doing, Lawman wound up getting put on a stretcher and then hauled into the barn. Once in the barn, they've got a very nice situation where they've got good lighting, they've got everything under control, and rather doing this in the pens, what a lot of people wind up doing, George winds up taking Lawman, puts him in the barn. They have complete control. They hook up a bag of fluids to keep him hydrated during the time. They give him a series of shots. And the deer is asleep the whole time, doesn't even feel it. Okay, they're gonna put tourniquets, if you will, band the antlers, and then they're gonna go ahead and cut them off. Once they cut them off, they're going to treat the top of the antler where they were cut off, and then they're going to take him back to the pen, and they're going to reverse him. He's going to get up. He's going to feel a whole lot better. He's not going to be carrying that big rack around, and it's going to be a lot safer for Lawman. Okay, so we're in a pen of stalkers right now, and I call it, this is harvest time for the deer farmer. And here at Tajada Whitetails, harvest time is really, really good. That's a profitable crop right there. So as far as stalkers go, tell everybody how old they are and kind of tell them the size of these deer. I mean, where are they going? Why do people want them, and how do they go about getting them?
Well, they're 2-year-olds, and we sell it to, and we've had...
Wait a minute, all of them are 2?
All of them are 2. Yeah.
Holy smokes. Okay, go ahead.
And the reason they're 2-year-olds because they're getting quite large there. And I mean, who needs a bigger deer than that, I guess is the best way to put it.
Right.
But you know, it's something that everybody's trying to get in their herd, whether they're trying to get longer tines, longer beams. Some people have deer that maybe they have whip, maybe they don't have whip. So whenever they come out here looking for a deer, they look at a deer that will really help them. Now, a lot of these deer will go to their pasture and will be double ear tagged.
Okay.
And the reason is if a person buys a deer that they're really wanting to help their genetics with, they want to make sure it don't accidentally get hunted or shot by somebody.
Right.
So they'll leave with giant ear tags in both ears. And some, I think there's 5 in this pen that are actually going to breeder pens.
Well, I should say so. I mean, that deer right there is breeder quality deer on just about anybody's farm but Tajada Whitetails. I mean,
well, the guy came, it's funny you pointed at him, guy came to me, he said, I need a deer with long beams and long G2s. And as you can see, that deer's got 33-inch beams and 18, 19-inch twos. I said, I happen to know where one's at. I said, let's go look at him. So he may not have been exactly what I was looking for. Maybe the next guy was looking for to breed. And that's the beautiful thing about deer is, there's a different one for every person. And now it's really interesting that you're seeing guys that turn loose on big ranches. They're like, hey, does that pedigree, is it different than the one I bought 2 years ago? Because I put him in the east pasture and I just soon have different pedigree if I could. Now I like his look, I'm gonna put him somewhere on my ranch. And it's funny that even on 500 and 600 and 700 acres, they're now starting to worry about paper because they're wanting to make sure that they outcross, not inbreed.
I'll tell you what, we have done a good job letting people know it is genetics. It is genetics. You got to feed them the right stuff, but it comes down to genetics. So he said people call him up, okay? Give him a telephone number if you want to call George Tunal.
832-622-2571.
All right, so when we get back from the break, we've seen some Gunslinger production, we've seen some real nice stalker deer, but I want you to show me a couple of breeder deer.
We'd love to. That's every year they grow out, we always wonder what they're going to look like, and we always seem to be happy with what they end up at.
Well, let's go look at them.
That sounds like a good deal.
Interested in starting a deer farm and don't have the capital to purchase animals? Well, head over to deerandwildlifestories.com and click the Startup tab to learn more. George, in his other life, I mean, most deer farmers have another profession they wind up doing, and George is known as the bug man, and the reason why is because he kills bugs, jillions of bugs, and not just here in Texas, but I mean anywhere. Okay, all over the world. And so, anyway, and his bug killing has helped save lots of deer's lives. I'll put it that way. It really has. I mean, it changed the industry. But for example, this pen right here, I want to stop and tell you something right now. There was a deer years ago that was perhaps the biggest 2-year-old buck that ever lived. His name was Earthquake.
Yeah, he was incredible.
He was incredible. We can show you pictures of him. The words can't describe it. People say, that was Photoshop. He was
that big.
He was that big. And unfortunately, a dog killed him. I mean, that's
right.
And if you want to know what the biggest thing that deer breeders are concerned about really is dogs in their pens. And the dog killed Earthquake. And tell them about this deer right here and how he's related to Earthquake.
Well, that's his full brother. That's Magnitude. And
Earthquake and Magnitude. Yeah. Holy smokes, look at him.
And when you talk about mechanics, I think we talked about last year that I feel, and I know it may sound silly or corny, but I feel like building a big deer is much like building a chocolate cake. You gotta have a little chocolate, gotta have a little salt, gotta have a little sugar.
Gotta have a little butter.
And you gotta have a whole lot of flour. And you gotta admit that he brings a whole lot of flour to the table.
Yeah,
and what I really like when it comes to mechanics is that he's got, he's over 30 wide. Okay, that's good. He's got 33, 34-inch beams. Okay, that's good. And I won't even say how many times he's got over 16 inches. I'll just let you show a picture of him and let everybody else to decide.
Okay, so you're saying he's his brother. He's Earthquake's brother.
Full brother.
Talk about a pedigree on him.
Well, you start out with that particular deer. He's a free agent son, and he anchors back to Robert Williams line.
Really?
So yeah, he does. And he's one of those deer that really is a great outcross. And a lot of people have a lot of gladiator line, a lot of express line.
Yep.
And now keep in mind, Gunslinger is express over free agent.
Okay.
So again, you got both of the same kind of lines. So what makes him a really neat deer for us is that he's an outcross in most situations.
That deer is gorgeous. Okay, and he's 4 years old?
He's 4 years old.
Okay, so what are you gonna do with him?
I'm gonna breed him. He's gonna cover. He's done well for us. He's a good cover buck. His temperament is unreal. He's just like Gunslinger. He'll walk up 10 feet from you, look at you, see what you're doing. if you have a dart gun, he'll make sure there's 2 or 3 deer between him and you.
Right. He's magnificent. He is really, really beautiful. So you got semen available on him?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay, so, but, you know, George says you're going to use him as a cover buck, and I think most people go, a cover buck? The reason why a cover buck, tell them why.
Well, if you have a 75% rate, I mean, I know there's people that have 95%. We never have. We always run somewhere around that 75% conception rate on AI. That means there's 25 to 30% of your does open, not pregnant. And with the caliber of girls that we run, you got to make sure that they all have a baby if possible. Yep. So if you say AI 30 of them, put them all in the pen, and you have 25% of them open, well, he's got 8 left to breed.
Right, right. Well, that's cool. He is a phenomenal deer. Okay. All right. So you got another breeder buck you want to take me to see, right?
Right.
What's his name?
Lone Ranger.
Lone Ranger. Okay. Just to give you a little tease on Lone Ranger. I remember, I guess Lone Ranger's 4 now, and I remember Lone Ranger's a yearling. You're not going to believe his antlers. We're going to cut to a little piece of video of me holding up his antlers. When we get back from the break, you're not going to believe what he grew into. So don't ever judge a book by its cover, especially if you're looking at a 1-year-old.
Exactly.
Hey guys, it's Ron with LA Fence here. Right now we're getting ready to pound some pipe into the ground, start building our braces. This first pipe right here is going to be one of our gate hinge posts. So we're going to drive this pipe extra deep. We're going to go probably 6 feet in the ground just about. All we're doing is using a hydraulic king hitter attached to the back of a 3-point on our tractor. So right now he just leveled to make sure he's hitting it square. And all he's going to do is just gradually hammer this pipe into the ground until we hit resistance. So here in a minute, it's going to keep going down pretty quick, and then it's going to hit the ground and just start going real slow. That's when we hit resistance, and then when we have solid ground that the pipe's into.
If you like what you're seeing on today's show, make sure and check us out online on the Deer Farming Channel. The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by Record Rack Deer and Elk Feeds. All right, so we're back, and we're going to show you another breeder buck here at Tajada Whitetails. So George, who is that right there?
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker. How old is he?
3.
Holy smokes, look at him. How wide do you think he is?
I don't know. Put a tape on him. There's people that said he's going to go 40. We'll see if he does. The sad part is that deer did not shed till March 31st.
Really?
Yeah.
If he would have shed earlier, he'd had a better time length, probably.
Yeah, you're still going to be surprised. Still going to have a lot of 12, 13-inch tines. At 2 years old, he had 8 tines over 12 inches.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What is it you think that makes him shed late like that?
Don't know. I mean, if I did, I'm not saying, but I might change it. But no, it's just, some deer hold late, and this year, hopefully, he doesn't.
That guy right there is the who?
Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger, and take a look at him. Now, when he was a baby, he was nothing to look at. Literally, he was, I guess, the littlest yearling you had out here.
I think he was 6 1/4 inch beam on his right, and he was 5 3/4 on his left.
And look at him now. I mean, so what is his pedigree?
He is freeze frame over Maxbow Ranger, which you're seeing a lot of Maxbow Ranger nowadays, on top of Lady Lex.
Oh, goes back to Lady Lex.
Goes back to Lady Lex.
Okay, so I want to point out that, as a hunter, you head to the field and you see these, what I call knotheads, walking around like this, and you think, this is a prime example, looking at Lone Ranger, of maybe you shouldn't pull the trigger on one of those little guys, don't you think?
Yeah, the one thing that I have learned in the deer business, at least I think I'm safe saying this, I'm sure I'll get corrected by somebody, but a big yearling normally means a big 2-year-old. But a little yearling means absolutely nothing, because a little yearling may trump every giant yearling when they turn 2. If you looked at the deer that were in the pen with him, same year as him, there were some 240, 260-inch yearlings that were, 21, 22, 23 inches wide. If you notice, you don't see any of them in here, but he still is.
What he just mentioned is absolutely important for you to remember. George, I got hats off to you, man. You have done a phenomenal job, and every time I come out here, I'm more amazed, and because a bug man made it big time in the deer business. I mean, so.
I always tell everybody, I'm not even a deer breeder, I'm just a bug man. I just get fortunate every once in a while and grow a decent deer.
he grows lots of decent deer. And folks, if y'all want more information about coming out to Tajada Whitetails and buying some really decent deer, and you need to give George a call. Give him a phone number.
832-622-2571.
And if you got some bugs that need to be killed too, he can do that too.
We can do that too.
George, thank you for having us out. And thank you all for watching. Folks, it's always a pleasure to come down here. This is just outside of Houston, Texas, and it is amazing. So if you want more information, get a hold of George. If you're watching our television show online, you can leave comments and questions below. Please do so, and make sure and subscribe while you're on our YouTube channel. My name is Keith Warren, and we'll see you next time.